Well, that leads me to my next question then. What is the best way to design a program that works on power and speed?
Right. Now, you remember how the first question was, metabolic testing? Ideally, this is not always available, ideally, when you have a VO2 test, there would be a correlating speed or power output, depending on whether you're on a bike or a treadmill, at your anaerobic threshold and at your VO2. And what I could do is take those figures out and say, wow, when Hayley was at anaerobic threshold, this was her power output, a speed output, and from that I could extrapolate a very accurate training program. Basically telling me, when you run at this speed, I know you're at AT. When you run at this speed, I know you're at max. That's very powerful information. Unfortunately, in this situation, it's not available. It's not available. But what is available is your heart rate at max and your heart rate at AT. So what I would love you to do is do a session where you do a max VO2 session and work out what your speed is. And I would love to know, when you're on the bike, what your power output is at max and at anaerobic threshold. Because based on that, I now have very specific data to train you at. So that when we're doing our max VO2 sessions twice a week, I know what power output on the bike and I know what speed on the run to train you at. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, that's arguably the best way to go. Interestingly, I'm going to throw this in there. This is the second round. We're going to throw in some new stuff. That's kind of what we do at PTA Global. There's a new approach to training for VO2 max, and it's called VVO2. And the extra V stands for velocity VO2. And its entire intention is to give you a ballpark of your running velocity when you're metabolically at your VO2 max. So that when you do your 2-3 sessions a week of max training, you know this is the speed I need to run at. And the way they say we can do it, there's a little bit of research on it, not a lot, but if we always wait for research to catch up, sometimes we miss the boat, is they say go out there and run flat out for 5 minutes, 360 seconds, flat out. What you do at the end of it is you calculate your distance. Example, I ran 1,800 meters in 360 seconds. What does that mean? I'm now running at an average clip of 5 meters per second. That means that 5 meters per second equates to roughly training at my VO2 max. So if you can't extrapolate the data, if you can't work out your average speed or your average power on a bike, go out for a 5-minute run and give it everything you've got, calculate the distance, which you can mark, or if you're good, you've got one of those little foot pods or a GPS, so you can really work out your running speed and distance for 5 minutes, and you'll have your correlating running speed. And now we know how to program. Second thing you brought up there is power. A couple of simple ways to do it. On the bike, you're going to have to do some high resistance intervals at a heart rate that correlates to AT and max. And whatever your power output is, that's going to be your base. And we're going to be able to add more wattage to that whilst maintaining the same heart rate. Okay?
Gotcha.
Another thing that I love, I don't care if you're a triathlete, rugby player, soccer player, tennis, football player, hockey player. One of the limiting factors, there's two big limiting factors to speed. One of them is turnover rate. Technically, if you speak to a track coach, they're going to say there's 3 things. What's your stride length? What's your turnover rate or foot contact, and from foot contact time, and then how much force do you put out? Well, we don't train in a lab where we can measure all of that stuff. But it makes sense to take the essence of what they're saying here is, I want more power per heel strike, and I want you to turn over your legs quicker. That's what it boils down to. I've found, other than flat out acceleration work, one of the single best ways to do that is hill climbs, hill runs, hill sprints. And there's 2 ways, because when we run on a gradient, it shortens our stride length, but it forces us to turn over quicker.
Right.
Now, unless you're training with a track coach and you're measuring stuff, get over it. You're not going to know exactly how quick your turnover rate is. But when you run on a hill, on a treadmill or outside, you have to turn over quicker and your stride gets shorter. So for me, hill sprints are a phenomenal way of increasing your speed of turnover and power per drive. Interestingly, other things they do is they significantly improve your lactate tolerance. significantly improve local lactate tolerance in the legs. So if you're running up a hill or cycling up a hill or sprinting on a bike, one of the single biggest factors is leg power. So you might have this huge engine, 65, 70 mils per kilogram per minute. You may even have a really good anaerobic threshold, 90, 95%. But if you haven't got the leg power, and as soon as those legs start creating lactate, you have to slow down. That's become your limiting factor. So for you, I definitely want to see within one of your anaerobic threshold sessions and within one of your VO2, some inclines, some hill sprints.
I don't like that, but I'll do it. Well, you touched on this part briefly in one of the previous questions about telling me that every 3 days I should do a recover and regen day. And, after looking at the whole or the macro cycle of this program and creating the meso and microcycles that come along with it, the units, or when the client comes into you every single day, every athlete, every trainer knows that our readiness for those workouts are dependent on the different stresses that they have on their body, and it fluctuates from day to day. So what is the best way to manipulate the variables in a periodized program to maximize results, but still getting to the goal?
Oh, this is great. Now here's where for me, maybe the most important part of listening to the biofeedback of your body, the metabolic stress on your body, is in this question. I quote Mark Verstegen a lot. I think he's a genius. Work plus rest equals success. We're looking at the work part. Half of the equation is rest. And anybody that's ever competed in more than one event, because we can often get through the first event on pure adrenaline, emotional attachment, and it's a massive achievement. But when you go out week after week, you realize, dude, I can't just keep going flat out. I'm actually decreasing performance. You have to get smarter in your training. So if we look at what Mark said, half the equation is recovery. So what does that mean for you? I want you using your stress to start, because I know you've got to watch. And there's 3 times, I recommend you do it. One, when you first wake up. Why? Because we're supposed to be rested when we wake up. If your heart is stressed when you wake up, I can only but imagine what's going to happen when daily life gets in the way. 2, about half an hour before the training session. So you woke up okay, but now you went to work. Blood pressure's up, people annoying you in traffic, people beeping their horns, you're running late, clients stressing you, didn't drink enough water. Okay, I still need to do another quick check-in 5 minutes before the session. If it still gives me the green light, go on. If it gives me amber, modify. And then the last time is about an hour after your session. About an hour after your session, I want to know how you recovered from the stress of the session. And this is crucial, because if you did a high-intensity VO2 max session or an AT session, and an hour later, you've eaten, you've watered, you've done some breathing, and this thing says you're still fully recovered, wow, that's as good as it gets. That's as good as it gets. That means next day you're ready to train again. So for me, I don't even try and work it out. I take the guesswork out. And obviously the other thing we use is our daily readiness observation in our advanced course. If I don't have access to this, we have a very simple process. You ask a bunch of questions, you quickly score it, and it tells you green light, amber, or red. So they're the 2 ways that I determine my recovery. And then if I need a recovery session, I want it to be between 55 and 65%, which is halfway through gear 1 to halfway through gear 2. But here's the kicker. It doesn't mean I have to just do the same activity in those gears. Because when we get in the pool and unload a lot of those forces we play against every day, gravity, ground reaction, mass, momentum, we're taking not only metabolic load off our body, but mechanical load. And what we know is there's a correlation between mechanical load and metabolic load. So if I mechanically keep loading myself, metabolically, that's going to stress me. So for me, get in the pool. Maybe do a couple of lengths, maybe just do a mobilizing session. Maybe get in there and play some games with yourself. I don't really care what it is. I'm actually a fan of doing recovery work not on the discipline that you're trying to perform in. So with you, if you're doing hard work on the bike, run, and in the swim, maybe do something else for your recovery sessions. Because what we know is, brain body, can't separate them. And even though you might say, look, I'm at 65%, the brain might be saying, oh, another run, another swim. That's not recovery.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, Hapo, I just want to thank you so much for the information that you gave. I think that not only will it help me in my programming and getting to my goal, and the viewers will get to see how I do on my race, but I think a lot of us can take away all of these nuggets and apply it into our own training. So thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. You're very welcome. And for those people that didn't see the first series of videos, go back through Facebook and check it out. We talk about the zones and that in a bit more detail. And for those that did, hopefully this helps a bit more. A lot more to come, right?
Yep. Thank you.
All right, good luck with your training, man.
Thank you.